This is the new 2025 Cadillac Escalade IQ, and it's Cadillac's shot at the ultra-luxury SUV world. This has a sticker price of more than $160,000. It's massively expensive, massively powerful, and just massive. This weighs more than 9,000 pounds, and it's 2 feet longer than a Mercedes S-Class. It's also full of quirks and features. So today, I'm going to review the Escalade IQ and show you everything. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the Cadillac Escalade IQ. And to start, it has power opening doors. You push a button on the door, it opens up automatically so that you can climb inside. And when it opens, it reveals a massive 55-inch screen up front that stretches from the edge of the driver's side to the edge of the passenger side, and that's just the beginning of all the crazy quirks in the new Escalade IQ. But before we get too far into the quirks and features, let's talk through some of the basics. The Escalade IQ is fully electric, and despite its name, it doesn't really share anything with the regular gas-powered Escalade, which is still on sale. This is a totally new vehicle, sort of similar size, kind of similar dimensions, but it's completely new, not even based on the standard gas-powered Escalade model. Instead, if you want to think of this as sort of a regular Escalade, but more, that's probably the right way to imagine it. For example, the price. The regular gas-powered Escalade has a starting price of around $90,000. This, the IQ, starts around $130,000. And this particular one, the premium luxury model, starts around $150,000, and this one is equipped to $162,000 for a General Motors SUV. Big money, like the regular Escalade, but more. Also like a regular Escalade, but more, the IQ is absolutely massive. 224 inches long, which makes it about a foot longer than a standard Escalade, and at 9,100 pounds, it's about 3,300 pounds more than a regular Escalade. Think of it this way, an Escalade and a Toyota Camry combined together equal the weight of the Escalade IQ. It is a massively huge vehicle, and it won't surprise you to discover that the IQ shares its platform with the Hummer EV, which is also an absolutely massive new electric vehicle. Amazingly though, the IQ manages to go from 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds, which is sports car territory. And it does that thanks to 750 horsepower and 785 pound-feet of torque, which again is like a regular Escalade, but more. Much more than the standard Escalade with a mere 420 horsepower, but this has even more power than the high-performance Escalade V, which is around 680 horses. This, at 750, is like a regular Escalade, but more, much more. Other impressive numbers here include the driving range, 460 miles pure electric before you have to recharge, which is really fantastic, and the towing capacity at 8,000 pounds is more than virtually any other EV. It's really amazing what you can do from a performance and capability standpoint when you're willing to take your vehicle over 9,000 pounds. But anyway, on to the other quirks and features, starting up front. As you know, an electric vehicle doesn't need a grille, but that didn't stop Cadillac from giving the Escalade IQ many. You have a giant front center grille, as you can see, with the Cadillac logo, and then you also have side grills on left and right sides of the center grille, and then below that you have a lower grille right here, and then below that you have a lower grille. I guess they really wanted to get all the grills in front to give it a traditionally Cadillac look. You also have a pretty decent amount of lighting elements up here. You can see the sort of vertical running light. There's also a horizontal sweeping turn signal up here, and just a rather large lighting panel situation up front, which makes sense. There's a lot of frontal area in this car. You gotta fill it with something, so they went with grille and lights. Now, interestingly, the side profile of the Escalade IQ is not as aggressive or as exciting as I expected that it would be, given this car's numbers on paper. Massive size, massive power. I thought it would be a little bit more in your face or crazy, but it's actually sort of restrained. In fact, it has a somewhat similar profile to the regular Cadillac Escalade, although you do have sort of a more sloping rear end, gives it kind of a sportier look, and helps to de-emphasize some of its massive heft. Although the wheels completely counteract that. These massive 24-inch wheels, they look huge, they are huge, and they do help emphasize the Escalade IQ's massiveness. And next up, we move on to the back of the Escalade IQ. A few interesting things back here. For one, you can see that this is badged as the Escalade IQ on one side, and on the other side it says 1,000. That number refers to this vehicle's torque rating in Newton meters. Cadillac badges some of its vehicles this way, with the Newton meter torque reading on the back. Nobody pays attention to it. Nobody really knows what it means, but they're doing it, and so you have the 1,000 badge. You can lord it over the other Cadillacs if anybody cares or notices. Other items worth pointing out in back: for one, the rear wiper has been tucked up under the rear spoiler, kind of a Range Rover trick. It allows you to get a cleaner look in back, sort of a simpler look, because the wiper isn't just sitting back here hanging out on the rear glass, looking kind of ugly. Other interesting items back here: for one, the giant vertical taillight, as you can see on both sides, becoming kind of a Cadillac hallmark on a lot of its vehicles. And probably the most interesting thing in back, to open up the tailgate, there's no latch or button that you press. Instead, you push on the Cadillac logo, and then the tailgate opens up automatically, which is kind of a neat little hidden trick. But I'll get to the cargo area in a minute. First, let's talk interior, and let's start with the doors. Yes, they automatically open. There's a little button behind the door handle. You pull it and the door opens up, although I've noticed it can be a bit glitchy, and sometimes it doesn't quite open far enough for you to get in, so you have to open it up manually the rest of the way. It has power opening doors. You just push a button. Now, when you want to close the door from the outside, you just start pushing on the door, and then it goes the rest of the way and closes itself up automatically and gracefully with soft closed doors that don't slam. It's a nice luxury touch when it's working. When you want to close the door from the outside, you just sort of start pushing it closed, and then it goes the rest of the way, usually, although not always. One other note on the doors: disappointingly, you cannot open them automatically from the key fob. The fob will let you open the tailgate, unlock the doors, etc., but to actually open them, you gotta walk up and press the door handle yourself, which is disappointing. The other disappointing thing about the key fob is, well, look at it. This is a $160,000 top-of-the-line vehicle, and it has this cheap plastic regular Cadillac key fob. You see that and you think, oh, there's regular General Motors cost-cutting and cheap plastic. It doesn't give you high hopes for the interior. You think it's not going to be that great, but you're wrong. Inside, the Escalade IQ's interior is absolutely gorgeous. A fantastic use of materials and trim, design and colors. Everything in here is really nice and really top quality, and there's only a few little demerit points, like this kind of cheap looking plastic on the steering column, or this cheap plastic on the sides of the seats. Those aren't areas you're looking very often, and everything else in here really does look top quality, high end, really nice. I especially like the seats with this gorgeous perforated leather design. It looks cool. And then these vertical stitching pieces, which give it a nice style. Again, everything in here looks like you'd expect given this car's price point. And of course, there's a lot of quirks and features to discuss. Let's start on the side of the dashboard. You open the door and you notice a Cadillac logo has been imprinted into the leather over there, reminding you of what you're getting inside. Now, the door panel itself is also really beautiful. A gorgeous leather and stitched affair with nice aluminum trim accents, but the most attractive part is this aluminum speaker cover, as you can see, really nice looking and really kind of sets the tone when you're climbing in the car. This is gonna be good. Now, as for closing the door when you get in, there's a couple ways to do it. One, you can pull up on the door handle, on the inside door handle. Pull on it, let go, and then the door will automatically close, power. Or you can go into this lower center screen here, and there's actually a control where you slide your finger over and the door will close as you slide. And actually, the front passengers can control all 4 doors from this screen. You can open the rear doors, close them all from this screen here, or if you're boring, you can just pull it closed like a plebeian, but who would do that? But anyway, since we're talking screens, let's talk about the primary screen and the primary focal point in this interior. Like I said, a 55-inch screen mounted on the dashboard that stretches from the driver's side all the way over to the opposite passenger side, a massive piece of screen technology. And of course, it does a lot of stuff, as you might imagine. Over on the driver's side, the gauge cluster, when you get in, it looks like a fairly traditional kind of gauge cluster screen. It shows you like the speed you're going, your drive mode, your odometer reading, all that kind of stuff. And it is, in its most basic setting, a gauge cluster screen that shows you all the usual information right in your line of sight where you'd expect. But you can change it. You can adjust so it shows a map instead of the usual gauge cluster, and it's a Google Maps screen, and it's massive, as you can see. You have a gigantic screen here directly in your line of sight again that shows you exactly where you're going. And you can change that again to show night vision. Yes, this car is equipped with night vision, which will display the road in front of you, but it will show warm objects in brighter light. So if like a deer or a pedestrian is going to walk out in front of you, you can see them more clearly with your night vision than you might be able to on a dark road using just your eyes with no night vision assistance, and that is a pretty cool feature. Next, we move over to the center screen, the middle part of this giant dashboard screen, and this is how you access your typical infotainment functions. So your map is in here, your stereo is in here, you pair your phone in here. This is a touch screen, and you use it to basically do all of your regular infotainment stuff like you would in practically any car. Obviously, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto sync up to this screen, and you can also... Sorry about that. The power closing door decided to randomly close on its own without warning, and it smashed my camera and tripod. But anyway, the center part of this screen, obviously regular touchscreen. You can use it to do all of your regular touchscreen stuff. And you also have Google Maps in here, and you have Amazon Alexa in here. And of course, this is where your Apple CarPlay and your Android Auto hook up if you're using those features as well. Now, the interesting part of the screen setup in this car is that none of those typically used infotainment touchscreen functions are located on the lower screen here in the center of the seats, which is actually physically closer to you if you're driver or passenger in this car. Instead, this lower screen is primarily for vehicle controls, and specifically, it's mainly for climate controls. Its home screen is the climate control screen. It'll allow you to adjust, obviously, temperature, airflow, all the stuff you can normally do in the climate controls, and you have other controls down here as well. For instance, this is where you open and close the doors, like I mentioned before. You also turn on your headlights here. Of course, you can leave them in automatic. The car will do it for you, but if you want to do it manually, it's done through this screen. Now, you can also use this screen to turn on your seat massagers, the massage function if you're sitting up front, which is very nice and luxurious. And it's worth pointing out that there is a redundant physical control for that if you want. Your seat massager control is right here mounted on the door panel, and you can just twist that control, and then it'll show up on the screen displaying your options, and you can keep twisting that control so you never actually have to touch the screen if you don't want. And it's the same with the heated seats in this car. Your heated seat control is located in this lower screen if you want to turn it on here, but there's also physical controls on the door panel. You can see heated seats, upper, and then you also have a cooled seat button here. Again, these are all redundant controls for stuff you could do in this center screen if you want, but basically you have choices. And interestingly, another redundant control is that if you go into the controls section of the control screen, you can use this screen to open up your glove box. Or if you go back up to the main screen, the center part, there's a little icon in the corner for opening up your glove box. So you can choose two places to do that. And you also have two places to access your camera. You can do that in the upper screen by tapping here, your camera system pulls up, or in the lower screen, you just tap on this little camera icon, and once again, the camera pulls up, but only on the upper screen. You press on the lower screen, it shows up on the upper screen. It's actually not all that complicated, and the camera system in this car is really, really fantastic. Just a great array of high quality angles showing all around this car, and really giving it the ability to feel a little bit smaller than its massive size would suggest, since you have such a great view of basically every part of the car when you're parking or maneuvering in tight spaces. Also worth pointing out that this car has blind spot cameras, which means you're driving along, you put on your turn signal, and a camera pops up in the center screen to show you what's in your blind spot to make a lane change easier. That's a big deal in a car this big. It's hard to see your entire blind spot, but it shows up easily in the screen, left or right sides, which really adds to the convenience. And by the way, speaking of redundant controls, it's also worth pointing out here in the center console, you have a little wheel that you can turn to adjust the main center screen, the middle part of that upper dashboard screen. You can twist the wheel and go through all of your various different icons and then select them by pushing down on the wheel. And you also have little illuminated icons around the wheel, flanking it, that you can use to go like to your home screen or to your map or to your music in case you don't want to reach all the way up and touch this central touchscreen. Also worth pointing out down here, you have this separate little dial, a smaller one, which is your volume knob, of course. If you want to make volume adjustments, it's sort of floating out there, unlabeled, kind of in an odd position. I suspect they didn't want to include a volume knob for the style of this area, but they eventually added one. It doesn't really look like it belongs there, but it adds some usefulness to easily adjust the volume, especially if you're sitting over on the passenger side. And speaking of the passenger side, the passenger gets their own screen, as you can see, a separate screen just for the passenger, although unlike in a lot of cars, this doesn't just mimic what you already have in the center screen, which is kind of stupid. Instead, it's an entertainment screen. So you can pull up like various entertainment apps such as Hulu and even YouTube. Yes, you can watch my videos while you're driving down the road, but only if you're the passenger. This screen is blocked out for visibility from the driver's side, so the driver cannot see it at all. And amazingly, this is not the end of the screens. You also have your rear view mirror in this car, which you can see as a normal mirror until you flip this switch and it becomes a screen projecting what's behind you, which I think is a very useful, impressive safety feature. You don't have to try to look through your seats and the people sitting in your car. You just get a full, clear picture of what's behind you at all times from that camera screen. But moving on from all the screens in this car, other interesting things to discuss. For one thing, here in the center console, you have not one, but two wireless device chargers, as you can see, one for the driver, one for the passenger, with these little holes on the top. That's where a fan is built in to help keep your device cool while it's being charged, which is pretty cool. Also in this area, you have these nice cup holders surrounded in this high quality aluminum trim, and there's this little center section that you can push down in case you have a cup with a handle and you need that space, or you can press this button and it will slowly rise back up in case you want it to be like your normal traditional cup holders again, and it's very luxurious, the whole situation. Also worth pointing out, at the center console area, you have a little storage area behind the lower control screen where you can put smaller items if you want to, as you can see, and there's a large storage area underneath the entire center console where you can put even larger items if you want, and there's also a huge storage compartment within the center console. Open up the armrest and you can see even more storage in here. Also worth pointing out, this vehicle is of course equipped with Cadillac's Super Cruise technology, which allows you to be kind of hands off the wheel in a lot of different situations. I will discuss that later in the driving portion of this video. I'll actually use Super Cruise on camera and talk about how how I think of it. Also worth pointing out, another interesting button on the steering wheel near the Super Cruise is this red V, which I guess gives you like a performance mode, like the Cadillac V performance brand. You press that and then you're in the V mode and you can have more fun in your 100 pound electric Escalade. Other interesting items worth pointing out up here, for one thing, in the headrest of the front seats, you have speakers built in for the sound system to give you the optimal listening experience, precisely directed exactly where you need and right next to your head, which is kind of cool to see. You also have relatively hidden climate control vents. On the dashboard, you have this silver trim line that goes basically the whole length, and your climate vents are actually behind here in some of the spaces and not others. They've done a relatively clever job of hiding it and hiding the switches you can use to control it. This is kind of the new thing in vehicle interior design, is hiding that climate vent, and they did a nice job here. You don't have ugly climate vents just sort of staring at you. Instead, a more cohesive general design with the vent more hidden. And next up, we move on to the back seat in the Escalade IQ, which is very much as luxurious and high quality as the front, and a very lovely place to be sitting in the second row. First thing, opening up the door, same deal. You pull the button, the door opens automatically, or at least it should. It does most of the time. Then you climb inside, and to close the door, again, same deal. You can pull on the door handle and then wait a second, it will automatically close, or you can use this center screen for the rear passengers, again, to swipe your finger, close the door, and then the door will close automatically. Obviously a nice luxury feature. Now, since I already mentioned this screen, let's talk about what it does. Again, like up front, primarily this is for vehicle controls, and it's mainly for your rear seat climate controls. Like usual, adjust the temperature here, the fan speed, the fan positioning. You get the same climate controls in back that you do up front. This is luxury. But you can also do other stuff here, like turn on your heated rear seats or your cooled rear seats, or turn on your rear seat massage. It's all done using this rear screen. Probably my favorite feature in here, though, is this one. It's called Conversation Enhancer, and when you turn it on, it will amplify the voices of rear seat passengers through to the front seat speakers, and that way front seat occupants can hear rear seat passengers better, and it'll make it easier to carry on a conversation when you're driving at higher speeds, which is a pretty neat idea. Now, as you can see, the rear seats also have other screens. On the backs of both front seats, you got another screen here. This is your rear seat entertainment screen, which basically mirrors the screen that the passenger had up front. And that means, once again, you have Hulu back here. You can watch various streaming apps. You also have YouTube, all your typical stuff for entertainment. And yes, that also means that rear passengers can be watching separate things and the front passenger can be watching a third thing. So you can have three different things on using headphones while you're all driving down the road, which is pretty cool. However, if you don't want to just watch something, be entertained, you can also check on the vehicle information from these rear screens while you're sitting back here. And this section will show you like the current range, obviously the current speed of the vehicle, the charge state, just some vehicle basics that you can keep track of while you're sitting in the back driving along in the Escalade IQ. Now, beyond all the technology back here, there's also... Okay, let's try that again without the door, again crashing the tripod without warning. Beyond all of the technology back here, you also have some other nice features. For one, once again, dual wireless chargers, one on each side, again with the built-in fans to keep your device cool. That's unusual. You see one wireless rear charger sometimes, but I've never seen two. That's a really cool feature. You also have power ports. You can see them here, USB-C behind this rear seat screen, and then below this rear center console, you have a household power port back here, which obviously can be very useful and convenient. Also worth pointing out, down here, you have a shockingly large storage area where you can stick stuff, bags, purse, whatever you might want. And that's surprisingly useful in back if you want to store stuff, because this center storage compartment is not a storage compartment. Instead, you lift up this armrest and you can see that this area contains tray tables. You open them out out, unfurl them, and you can have your tray table for eating your lunch or using a laptop, reading, whatever you want while you're being whisked along back here. As for quality in the back seats, once again, the door panel looks great. You have, again, the nice leather and stitching and those beautiful aluminum speaker grates, and you have this wonderful trim piece that sort of starts out looking like wood and just kind of fades to black. It's a really nice look. And another nice piece of attention to detail, again, you have the headrest speakers also for the back seats. I've seen them for the front before, but you don't really see them for the back that often, but it's nice to have additional headrest speakers back here. So the front two rows are really nice places to spend time. Unfortunately, the third row seat, not quite the same situation. For one, access isn't really great. The only way to get into the third row is a little switch mounted on the inside of the door area right here. You push it and then you have to hold it down. You can't just press it. You got to hold it the whole time while the second row seat kind of folds up. But it doesn't really fold that far. So there's not great access to the third row. And even when the seat is all the way folded, you're still blocked by the seat belt trying to get back into the third row. Interestingly, there are some loops on the side of the second row seat that you'd think you just pull and maybe it folds the seat forward so you can get back. But I pull on these loops and they don't seem to do anything. It doesn't matter how you pull or how you press the seat. They don't seem to really have much function. So getting into the third row, not that easy. And the third row itself is not that large. You can see there's really not all that much space back there, even though this is a huge vehicle. You'd expect it, but you don't get it. It's very clear being in this car that it is definitely meant more for the driver, maybe the rear seat passengers, but not necessarily intended to be a three-row family SUV, or at least not in this configuration with this giant rear center console and screen. Maybe you'd go for something a little different if you actually frequently wanted to use your third row. It is worth pointing out, Cadillac is going to make an even bigger version of this called the Escalade IQ L for long wheelbase. So presumably they will address some of these complaints and give you more third row space and probably cargo space too. Also worth pointing out, in the third row, you do have cup holders back here, which is nice. And you do have individual charge ports, so third row passengers can charge their devices in back, which again, nice to have. But anyway, next we move on to the cargo area. Again, you tap the Cadillac logo and the tailgate opens right up. And back here in the cargo area, you actually have a surprisingly decent amount of space even behind the third row. Usually these SUVs, you get a third row or cargo space, but here you get both. Although I think if it was me designing this car, I would have pulled the third row back a few more inches to give third row passengers more space, since it's pretty tight back there, and I would have taken up some of this cargo space, which is pretty generous, again, for a three-row SUV. But if you want even more cargo storage, you can open up the floor in the cargo area, and you can see there's a little compartment down here. Right now it's being used for your charging cables, but you got extra storage down there to use for whatever you want. Also worth pointing out, of course, you can raise and lower the third row seats from the cargo area. These switches here, power operated, you just press down, the seat goes down, and you get more cargo space in back if that's what you're looking for. Pretty standard stuff in the cargo area. However, things are more exciting up front, where you also have a cargo area. This giant front trunk opens up. It's power operated, and you can open it in several different ways. There's a button on the key fob that you can press. You press it twice, and the front trunk power opens, as you can see. Or you can open it up using this button here in the interior next to the steering wheel. Push that, it'll open. Or there's a hidden button on the front bumper of the car. It's down here, sort of low. You wouldn't know it's there, but a little rubber button that you can press, and that will open up the front trunk. But anyway, you open up the front trunk and you discover that it is shockingly large up here. The giant long front hood of the Escalade IQ obviously doesn't contain an engine because it's all electric, so this space can be used for storage. And you have a large storage compartment in here. And not just that, but you have a plastic storage tray with a cargo net, as you can see. You're thinking, what do I do with that? Well, the answer is you can pull it out. You see this little latch at the end? You just flip it and then pull it out, and then you can load your cargo in here and then push it into the front trunk so it stays where you need it to. Or you can take it out and sort of have it sitting here if you want a tray, you're doing some sort of like grilling at a campsite or I don't know what, but you have a little sliding tray back here, which is actually kind of a cool feature. Also located back here, you can see another household style power port sport, which is obviously nice to have, and a cool feature in the rather large front trunk. But anyway, this car has got a lot of interesting quirks and features, and one of those is undoubtedly how it drives. So let's get behind the wheel of the Escalade IQ and get it out on the road. All right, driving the Escalade IQ. The giant, gargantuan, powerful, long range. I mean, this has it all. And it weighs like it has it all. I cannot believe that this weighs a regular Escalade plus a Camry. But it's believable when you get inside and drive it. It's absolutely a behemoth vehicle. But then you floor it and it's quick. Which makes you wonder, you know, should the regular public have access to 750 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds in a car that weighs 9,200 pounds? Putting all that aside, let's talk driving experience. First off, I gotta say, despite the massive size of this car, the high driving position, the hugeness of it all, when you drive the car, especially around in tighter spaces, it doesn't seem as big as it is. We have your rear wheel steering in this, which definitely makes U-turns or tight turns a lot easier. Parking this is not particularly difficult because, I mean, if you can find a space large enough, because of that rear wheel steering. You also have a fantastic camera system, which I showed you before, that just shows you where everything is from all angles, and that makes the car feel smaller because you have a really good idea of your, limits on the car, your size. From a driving perspective, a few interesting things. Number one, the acceleration level, the power level is quite impressive. It really is fast. It's not incredibly fast, it's not sports car fast, but for a vehicle of this heft, it's astonishing just how responsive and quick it is. The same cannot be said for the steering and handling. Obviously, steering and handling is just not quite on that level. It's never going to be in a car this size, but here you really do feel pretty disconnected from a steering and handling perspective. You feel like you're driving the big behemoth boat of a car that you indeed are. It is a large vehicle. It has body roll. The steering is soft, overly assisted, and very disconnected. That's not all that surprising. The only thing that actually has really surprised me about the driving experience, number one, it feels smaller than it is, even though it's massive and feels big. It does feel smaller, like I said, but the other thing is I'm kind of surprised by the ride quality. I was expecting the ride quality to be a little smoother. It obviously has 40 billion inch wheels, and so you were never going to get this like amazing, supple quality, but I just felt a vehicle like this, which is so focused on luxury at this price point, you would have like a very supple ride. I don't really feel like that. It's fine, it's nice. I don't find it to be considerably better than a nice Tahoe or something like that. And the same goes for road noise. I actually hear more than I was expecting to. There's a little bit more tire noise than I was expecting, a little bit more noise from other cars. It definitely does not have the kind of Rolls-Royce or Bentley feel that I was thinking it might from a ride quality and noise perspective. Even Mercedes-Benz S-Class models at this price point do deliver a better job with that. The Escalade has a lot of other tricks up its sleeve that are also amazing, but from a pure luxury comfort standpoint, this lags behind. Now, I've got Super Cruise going, and I've always been a big fan of Super Cruise. I think it works fantastically well. It's really a great system. It does a great job holding the road, even in the face of, road curves and weird road line changes, etc. As long as you basically keep looking forward, it reads your eyes, and it goes around curves. It just does a great job, essentially self-driving. Super Cruise is not really a great system that you'd want to use off the freeway. Instead, you get sort of a normal adaptive cruise, but on mapped roads where Cadillac has this figured out, Super Cruise has got to be the best system. You can be hands off the steering wheel for long periods of time, and of course it'll do lane changes for you also. Overall, this is an impressive vehicle. I think it's more impressive from a technology and performance and features perspective than it is on the driving experience. I think the driving experience is fine, but maybe not quite as nice as I was expecting given what this vehicle is. You make a car cost $165,000 from Cadillac and you make it 9,300 pounds. I have some pretty significant expectations for the car. This delivers fairly well, but I just don't feel like it's quite as comfortable or as luxurious or as supple as I was expecting, although it does deliver in so many ways in terms of just overall tech and features and ability. This car can do a lot of stuff. It's just not quite kind of at the craziest level of luxury that I was expecting given quite what it is. Nonetheless, still a very thing-filled car in quite an impressive way that I think a lot of the types of people who buy cars like this will be especially excited about, being able to brag about all the stuff this car can do. And there are very few cars that can do more in terms of an overall like features and just insanity of equipment perspective. And so that's the new 2025 Cadillac Escalade IQ. This is an ultra SUV in the most ultra sense of the word ultra. It's shockingly fast, shockingly full of stuff, shockingly huge, and just plain shocking. If a regular Escalade seems too pedestrian, and if you want to dwarf that in every sense of the term, this will do it. And now it's time to give the Escalade IQ a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 63 out of 100, which puts the Cadillac Escalade IQ here against rivals dead last. I was surprised how I ended up feeling about the Escalade IQ, as I love the Hummer EV and GMC Sierra EV that share its platform, and I like the regular Escalade a lot too, but the IQ was just too everything. Too big, too heavy, too expensive, too in your face, too much. It's a neat car, and I think it'll do well with a certain market segment, but I gotta assume that segment is small. People who want a massive show-off SUV, but also an EV. If that's you, this is an option, but so is a Rivian R1S or a Mercedes-Benz G580, both of which are much more manageable, competent vehicles. It has power opening doors. You push a button. Why did they open so little that time? Are they worried? And you discover quickly that it is shockingly large up here. God. Ugh, I hate this stupid power stuff. But anyway, you open up the front trunk and you discover that